We're building a monster truck engine. This is the beginning of it. I want to do a twin turbo blown 7-liter Duramax. We decided to fully instrument this setup and just do the blower, just run the blower. I know what turbos will do, but I want to do the turbos blown into the supercharger and use the supercharger to get low-speed throttle response, which is really crucial in the monster truck. You've seen them stand them on the nose, and it's amazing, but it requires really tight throttle control. So we're turning this 1071 20% over crank. So when the engine's at 5,000, the blower's at 6,000. And at 6,000 RPM blower, we're making nominally 20 pounds of boost and 480 degrees or so compressor outlet temperature. How hot is that? Let me put it in perspective. Years ago, Ray Bradbury wrote a book called Fahrenheit 451. 451 degrees Fahrenheit is the kindling temperature of paper. Maybe I can use this as a log lighter for my fireplace. I don't know, but you don't want to be running your log lighter into the intake manifold. So what are these things here? I kind of teased this in the last video. We're going to run straight methanol, and then we're going to run our Banks Power Blend, which is 50% methanol, 49% water, distilled water, and 1% corrosion inhibitor. We're not going to run 5,000 RPM. We're going to run 3,200, where I feel better about running the thing dry for a sustained period. And then we're going to add in various levels of methanol or water meth. Aaron and I are going to run a series of tests, starting with our Banks Power Blend water meth, and take it in 20% flow increments and look at what happens to torque, what happens to manifold temperature, what happens to lambda. I mean, there's a whole lot of things we'll discuss after we run this program. We're going to keep an eye on cylinder pressure. I'm kind of edgy about the octane of the methanol. When we get to methanol, it's around 112 octane, the methanol we're running. I haven't found any data out there where people are running a diesel with methanol overlay. So I have no idea what's happening here. So let's fire it up. We'll go ahead and run. I'm going to start with 80% water meth. And we'll have a water meth mass reading in pounds per minute. And also we'll have a water meth or methanol pump output pressure reading here on the control instrument. Let's go ahead and fire it up. We'll make a pass dry, see what the temperature looks like in the manifold, and then we can come back and run 80%. We'll see what that looks like. Then we'll run all the other levels with water meth. We'll change to straight methanol, and we'll run through those steps. So let's light her off and go for it. Build a little heat in this thing. You know, I feel lots of people have injected lots of water meth into diesel with generally favorable outcomes. Injecting straight methanol, that's got me on edge. That's a lot more volatile, and that's why I want to start with water meth. But first we'll run it dry. No water meth flow at all, and see what we get for temperature. What have we got? Ah, there's manifold air temperature right there. We're currently at 210. We're not making a hell of a lot of power here because the blower, it isn't, increasing the air density that much, even though we've got a boost number that's somewhat impressive. Okay, boost 15 pounds. There's the boost number, the manifold air temperature, almost 360. Torque output's around 310. No flow in the water meth. This will stabilize pretty quickly, I hope. 377, 78, 79, 80. This thing, whoa. I'm losing my nerve here. It's slowing down. It's not rising as fast, but it's rising. Let's call it quits. I think I've had enough. Yeah. We're starting to knock on the door of 400 degrees. Let's go to 80% water meth. Now we're also showing manifold air temperature on the water meth controller here. So we're showing the pump pressure, we're showing the water meth flow in pounds per minute, and this is a basically 50% methanol, 49% water, and 1% corrosion inhibitor. So you know the blend. This will be manifold air temperature, and we'll bounce this level up to 8 for our starting point. It's almost hard to believe, and we're at almost 240 in the manifold, and we're just idling. I mean, we're basically at 1,000 RPM here, making 11 foot-pounds of torque and 2 horsepower, and that thing is heating the air that much. If it were a turbo, it would be completely backed off, and it would hardly heat the air at all. But this thing is belt-driven. You're getting it whether you want it or not. Let's get it up to 3,200, and then punch that up to level 8. All right, here we go. Injection is armed. There's level 8. Water flow 1.3. Manifold air temperature is 360. And it's just sitting there. Torque is 370. Nominally, horsepower around 225. All right. I think we got it. That made a whopping difference there in temperature. Let's run 20%, 40%, 60%, and 100%. Okay, we've got all the water meth done. I can't wait to go through all this stuff graphically. We're going to methanol now. And here we go. Injection system on. 3,200. 6. Wait a minute. Have a look at that. Look at that. Oh my God. Oh, cylinder pressure went nuts. Oh man. Oh man. Oh man. Oh man. There were multiple max cylinder pressure spikes or peaks. That's uncontrolled combustion. I hope the first one was not before top dead center, because that'd be trying to shove the piston down the bore backwards as you're coming up on the compression stroke. All right, I'm going to grow a pair and we're going to run level 8. Then Aaron, if you can get the guys together, I want to leak that thing down. I want to boroscope it and look at the valve seats and the cylinder walls. And I'd like to pull the hat off and see if we still have a serviceable blower. If it's wounded, we will see it in the leak down, of course, and we'll see the condition of the blower. So Aaron, let's go ahead and run it on level 8, and then we'll hit you with the data. I have to be honest, I'm going to show you some stuff that we didn't video. I'm going to take you a little behind the scenes here. Before we get going on any test series, sometimes I want to know a little more about it before I start. And on this one, I was worried about the octane of the methanol and whether or not we were going to have detonation. We're blending two fuels together. The diesel fuel is the thing that lights the methanol. So when you start injecting diesel, there's a very short delay, and then you have a flame front. The octane for this methanol is around 112, and that doesn't mean you can't detonate that fuel. If the circumstances are right, or in this case wrong, you're going to detonate it. The diesel is the spark plug. So we set up a test, and I'll give you some numbers. We set our pilot injection at 41 degrees before top dead center, and our main injection at 8 degrees before top dead center. And we're going to run the engine 3200, which was the intended RPM for this part of the series. And we were going to add methanol until we were 1:1. In other words, if you're injecting a pound of diesel, you're injecting a pound of methanol. We're going to do it in 3 steps. Torque first. With no methanol, 227 pound-feet. With the first level of methanol, 291. Second level of methanol, 349. And at 1:1, 381 pound-feet. So what does that mean for horsepower? No methanol, 3,200 RPM. We're not putting a huge amount of diesel in here. I didn't want to have it on kill on diesel and then start putting methanol in. We entered this unknown territory very softly. 138 horsepower with no methanol, and then we went 177, 213, and 232 1:1 proportions. So actually it was a little bit more methanol than diesel. So we picked up 94 horsepower, just adding the methanol, starting at 138, ending at 232. Now so far this sounds like, okay, that's cool, that's interesting. Our methanol flow rate, just for information, level 1, 0.67 pounds per minute, level 2, 1.09 pounds per minute, and level 3, 1.49 pounds per minute. The ratio is 0.49 to 1, 0.77 to 1, and 1.06 to 1. That's where we have a little bit more methanol. This is methanol to diesel fuel ratio. Maximum cylinder pressure. In round figures, 80 bar, this is atmospheres, 88, 104, and rounding off 123. Here's where the wheels came off of this whole deal. Where is the peak cylinder pressure? Now I've mentioned before, 10, 12 degrees after TDC, 14 degrees after. When we made the first pull on straight diesel, peak cylinder pressure occurred 11.6 degrees after top dead center. You're not peaking when the piston is clear up at the top of the bore. You're peaking after, as the crank rotation has progressed beyond TDC. The piston's coming down the bore on the power stroke. But this is what we started noticing. At the lowest concentration of methanol, our timing was of the peak. We didn't change the injection timing, but the timing of the peak was now 8.6 degrees after top dead center, then 6.2 degrees, and at 1:1, diesel to methanol, 2.6 degrees after top dead center. When I saw that cylinder pressure trace, I freaked out. I kind of went, well, wait a minute. This is, I knew things would get strange, I assumed. And nobody else has done this, to my knowledge. The Supercharger on diesel with methanol, I'm unaware of anybody doing this, especially somebody doing it and getting the data we're getting. what happened to exhaust temperature? Did it go nuts? Not too bad. I mean, 1063 without, 1272 with 1-to-1 ratio of diesel and methanol. That's happy, no problems there. So what's going on here that's causing all this to advance so damn much? And we all walked away from it. I said, you know what? I want to think on this. And usually, if I've got a really big problem, I don't know how this is with you, but with me, if I sleep on something, I usually have an aha moment the next morning, because over the night, I kind of figured out what was going on. And in this case, I came back in and I said, Aaron, I said, were we running pilot injection? Was the pilot on or off? He says the pilot was on. I said, good God, the pilot is starting the methanol burning. It's advancing the initiation of combustion. And that's what's going on, pushing this cylinder pressure so close to top dead center. This is a non-starter, but when we do the testing, let's turn off the pilot injection. So that's not part of it. And now I'm going to enter into the actual data. But I can tell you right now, if you're doing this, no pilot injection, guys, that's too early. So we effectively, in turning off the pilot, move from 41 degrees before top dead center to 8 degrees before top dead center. Now you might say, well, there's over 30 degrees difference there. Your peak pressure didn't change 30 degrees. The pilot injection is kind of mild, and the heat generated might not have quite been to the kindling temperature to auto-ignite the alcohol. In other words, it might have taken getting closer to top dead center, but still before the main injection. So I thought, let's just get rid of the question entirely, turn off the pilot injection. Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff. This is the water meth. Why am I doing this? Why am I running this fluid through the blower? Why am I not just running on straight diesel? Well, I want to cool the air coming out of this blower. We in our early testing with this blower, running it dry, got near 500 degrees out of the blower into the intake manifold. That's just crazy. I mean, that's just hard to believe. I mean, I'm a density guy. You know, you need an intercooler in there, but even there, it's scary hot. So an intercooler can sweep up for a whole lot, but this Roots blower is very inefficient. Therefore, to make a little bit of boost, you get a load of heat. I mean, I don't want to be roasting turkeys in the dyno room. So I think the thing to do here is cool it down. Now you're going to have some fuel content and you're going to have some water. And there's been a lot of talk about water meth is great because it increases the power and it decreases the EGT. The major outfit that I'm aware of in the diesel water meth marketplace makes that claim everywhere. Oh yeah, it'll cool down. Well, there's methanol in there. That's a fuel. When you burn it, that heats. Is there enough water to offset the energy from burning the methanol? What's this all about? Because if you take the energy and you turn the water into steam, yeah, that will remove some of the temperature. This is called change of state. Latent heat of vaporization. Then you hear this wives' tale that, oh, that's beneficial because it turns the engine into a steam engine. It's a diesel running methanol and it's a steam engine. I mean, that's all over the web. So I thought, okay, Let's measure all the effects. Let's measure the air density even going into the intake manifold and whether or not vaporizing the water and the methanol affects the air density. This blower is not a turbocharger. It is fixed to the engine. It's running 20% faster than the engine. So when we run 3200, it does its job. And that's all it does. So going in, 50-50 water-methanol, we ran a number of levels, and our torque went 303, 320, 338, 364, 384, and finally 410. We picked up 107 pound-feet. The fuel rate was equaled and slightly exceeded at level 10 by the water-methanol. In other words, for a pound of diesel fuel, we're putting a little over a pound of water-methanol in, and this is a nominal 50-50 blend. That's what the marketplace calls this. Ours is 50% methanol, 49% water, and 1% corrosion inhibitor, which nobody else makes a water-methanol blend with a corrosion inhibitor in it. And horsepower, starting at 184, we picked up 11, 22, 38, 50, and finally we made 250 horsepower for an increase of 66 horsepower. Now here we have a little more water meth than we have diesel at 250 horsepower, 3,200 RPM. At level 10, we didn't put in as much as additional methanol. It's not one-to-one methanol, it's one-to-one water meth, or a little better than one-to-one. Here's the flow rates, 0, and then at level 2, a half a pound per minute, 0.88 at level 4, 1.18 at level 6, 1.55 at level 8, and 1.89 pounds per minute of water methanol at level 10. So that gave us a really significant increase in power and torque. The manifold air density, 89.9 pounds per 1,000 cubic feet. This is measured in the intake manifold. This is the number that determines the horsepower output of the engine. In other words, you're shooting for a certain air-fuel ratio. Here, we're not shooting for a certain air-fuel ratio. We're just screwing around. So our density provider, which is the supercharger, isn't changing speed. But what's happening when you start injecting water methanol, the air density coming out of the blower drops slightly to 89.7, and level 4, it's back to 89.9. What's going on here? Well, you're cooling the air, which makes it more dense, and you're vaporizing water and methanol, which is trying to crowd out the oxygen-bearing air. The cooling wasn't that effective until we got to level 6, and now the density of the air is going up as well. And ultimately at level 10, we've gone from 89.9 pounds per 1,000 cubic feet of air to 93.2. This is the air that's not, we're not talking atmosphere here. This is the volume being pumped by the engine cylinders. And every cubic foot being pumped has that mass, in other words, 93.2 pounds per 1,000 cubic feet pumped. And just a quick review, the ratio of water methanol to diesel fuel, none, 0.28, 0.54, 0.72, 0.93, and finally 1.15 pounds of water meth per pound of diesel fuel at level 10. What happened to lambda? Lambda is a measurement, if you will, of air-fuel ratio. But here, we don't know the proper air-fuel ratio because we have two fuels and we're changing the blends between those fuels. So I said, let's just go to straight up lambda. When we run out of available air, lambda will be 1. In other words, when lambda is 1, you've got no more oxygen left in the exhaust coming out of the engine. That means you've consumed all the air that was there. We start out with excess air stock, and we knew we'd have it. We're not putting that much diesel fuel in. So our lambda is a 152. As the number comes down, you're effectively getting richer. 147, 138, 132, 126, and 120 lambda at the end. So we could have put in some more diesel, we could have put in some more water meth and brought it all the way down to a 1.00 lambda. Then we would have used all the available oxygen. I don't like to go beyond that because then you start getting a hell of a lot of smoke out of the pipe, that unburned diesel fuel. How do we do for reducing manifold air temperature? Running no injection of water meth, level 0, the blower was making 326 degrees in the intake manifold. Now we've softened up everything here. We're not near 500 like we were way back when at 5,000 RPM. As we started injecting, level 2 we dropped to 322. Level 4 we dropped to 315. Level 6, 309. Level 8, 301. And level 10, 292. So we only cooled down from 326 to 292. We only got rid of 34 degrees. In the monster trucks, when they're running the Supercharger, they're running pure methanol, and it's a spark-ignited engine. It's not a diesel. It's a big 540-inch big block Chevy with an 871 blower, a little smaller than the one we're running here. They put so much methanol through the engine, it only runs on methanol, that the intake manifold, when they're under full power, is under 100 degrees. That's righteous. That's where you want to be. If you're running one of these Roots Superchargers on methanol, the methanol pretty well heals up the sin of the blower's inefficiency. All right, we've gotten to exhaust gas temperature, EGT. You've been told for a long time that injecting water methanol into a diesel will drop the exhaust gas temperature. Well, I'm here to tell you, you've been snowed. Here are the facts. Level 0, nothing but diesel, 1151 degrees EGT. Level 2, 1185. Level 3, 1224. Wait a minute. What's going on here? It's not getting colder. Level 6, 1256. Level 8, 1277. Level 10, 1285. It's up 134 degrees. Tell me it ain't so. Oh man, I'm having too much fun with this. So, we just debunked that. So you've learned a couple of things now. If you're going to shoot in straight alcohol, turn off the pilot injection. And if you want to reduce EGTs, it ain't going to happen with water meth. No way, no how. All right, let's talk about the methanol injection now. I kind of thought the methanol chills better as it evaporates than water. So what if we just run straight methanol? Now, I can't give you the heat values here. And maybe I'm dead wrong. Maybe it doesn't. But I think it does. So let's run diesel and methanol again, but turn off the pilot injection. Still had a little fear of detonation, that 112 octane. How will this work out? Looking at torque first. 303 pound-feet with no methanol. 331 at level 2. 372 at level 4, 413 at level 6, and 442 at level 8. So we gained almost 140 pound-feet of torque. Horsepower, 184, again, same as the last test series. 201, 227, 251, and then finally 269 for an 85 horsepower gain. Now I want to come clean. We're not putting in as many gallons per minute of straight methanol as we did water meth. I'm a little chicken here, and as you saw, as we ended the test series, and I saw what was going on at level 6, you should have seen what happened on level 8. It got really raucous. But we went ahead and ran it anyway, and here are the results. The methanol flow rate in pounds per minute, Level 2, 1/4 pound per minute, 1/2 pound per minute, 0.84 pounds per minute, and 1.22 pounds per minute on level 8. At 0.84 pounds per minute, we have going to the methanol to diesel fuel ratio. That's being level 6. It's like 0.51 to 1. In other words, 1/2 pound of methanol to a pound of diesel. And finally, we at level 8, 0.73 to 1. You guys that want to screw with this, these are ratios where it starts to get really edgy, very edgy. The lambda, once again, we started at a 1.56 lambda and we ended at a 1.14 lambda. So we know we had enough oxygen to burn the fuel we put into the engine. The manifold air temp didn't fare as well. We got 16 degrees reduction in temperature, but it's a bad comparison in that there's no water. Exhaust gas temperature, once again, even though we don't have water to help cool down the exhaust, we went from 1176 at level 0 to 1317 at level 8. So the temp gain here is 141 degrees. It's a bit more than we had with the water still there, but in no case does the injection of straight methanol or the injection of water-methanol reduce the exhaust gas temperature, because you're putting fuel in both cases. There's a couple of things that I really found interesting here. You know, when we ran that first test series with straight methanol, and the timing of the peak cylinder pressure advanced way too close to top dead center. What happened with the water-methanol? Well, if I look at the crank angle at maximum cylinder pressure, 12.5 degrees after top dead center on straight diesel, and it dropped gradually to 9.8 degrees after top dead center. So it did advance somewhat, but not adversely. And when we went to straight methanol in this last round, we did have a situation starting at 12.5 degrees after top dead center, where we came to 5.5 degrees. So that's what was getting raucous as we ran level 6 and level 8. What are we looking at here when we look at cylinder pressure? We're looking at the rate of release of the fuel energy. Kind of determines the speed you're turning it and the geometry of the engine where you want to have peak cylinder pressure. We've got 3 traces I want to show you. The first one is normal combustion with pilot injection. The second one is methanol injection level 8. The pressure rise goes straight up right when you're at top dead center. In fact, it may hit peak cylinder pressure a little before top dead center, but the way the software works, it pegged it at about 2 degrees after. Here they are on the same graph, so you can really make the comparison. You can clearly see that the peak on the stock setup is well after top dead center. I think what you're looking at here is detonation. This is what detonation looks like with a gasoline engine. Very similar trace. We have exceeded the octane rating of that methanol, something fierce, and there's not a damn thing we can do about it. When I get into data, things tend to pop out at me, and this is one that I think is really kind of cool. We were talking about the steam engine theory, that putting the water in produces steam and that makes the engine more powerful. Just by coincidence, I've got methanol injection and water-methanol injection, wherein the amount of methanol added is identical. So let's look at that real quick. Level 6 with methanol and level 10 with water-methanol each had 0.84 pounds per minute of methanol added, or 7.6 gallons per hour. The water added on the water-methanol test is 1.05 pounds per minute, or 7.55 gallons per hour. What happened that's different? Looking at EGT, on level 6, the intake manifold temperature was 310, and the exhaust temperature was 1308. The gain through the combustion process was 998 degrees. With the water meth, we started at 292 on that test, and 1285 was the EGT for a gain of 993. So you see the exhaust gas temperature gain is down 5 degrees. Not too remarkable there. But what happened was the air density gain. The density of the air in the intake manifold went from 21.8 pounds per thousand to 24.6. So there's more air available because you've injected and cooled the air and condensed it and made it more potent. So that's a cool thing. But you're only putting in the same amount of diesel fuel. You can put in excess air, but nothing happens unless you put in more diesel. And where's the proof of that? Let's look at the horsepower. Level 6 with methanol, 251 horsepower, 413 pound-feet of torque. Level 10 with water-methanol, same methanol content, 250 horsepower and 410 pound-feet of torque. It's within 1 horsepower and 3 pound-feet of torque. That's because the fuel that we added is the methanol. The steam that was formed didn't make any more horsepower at all. We made identical horsepower, so the whole steam engine theory is nothing but bunk. One more thing, I was curious about blower parasitic horsepower versus turbo parasitic horsepower, and I saw in the data an opportunity to nail that down, at least on this test. On the straight diesel runs, we're in the 180 and change range. We're using 0.507 pounds per horsepower hour of diesel. That's really bad. Just the average turbocharged diesel would use 0.400 pounds nominally per horsepower hour. Using the same fuel, only dividing the total fuel mass by 0.4 gives us a 50 horsepower increase at 3,200 RPM if we just went from that supercharger making the same power to a turbocharged engine using the same fuel. You pick up 50 horsepower. That damn blower is using 50 horsepower out of the crankshaft. No wonder all these straight diesel numbers look so punk. It's just using a lot of diesel to run itself. Well, guys, it looks like we've learned a lot in this session.
Gale, Mike found something you might want to see.
Maybe the session's not over yet. Well, I think this one falls under the heading of read 'em and weep. How's the leak down?
10 to 15%. Number one's 15%.
No wonder you're looking at number one then.
Yeah.
Mind if I?
Yeah, look through the
Yeah,
borescope,
let's see
please.
what you've got.
Look at the cylinder walls.
All right. Oh, baby. Piston color looks good, but oh boy. Oh my. Something that shouldn't have been in there, something that should not have been in there has been in there. Minimum we got to do is take the engine down and dust the walls and ring this thing. We'll see how the piston skirts look. Let me take a look at the blower. You say you've got a problem with the blower? Yeah, I see why. We're through the hard anodize, and we've had some aluminum. That's where the cylinder wall scratches came from. Well, you know what? When we started this whole thing, I had a little trepidation about the clearancing in the blower. I got the blower with gasoline clearances, which is loose, instead of methanol clearances. And even so, I didn't get the blower with clearances adequate to run it dry. And there's what happens. So it's on me. I bought a blower. You know what? I think it's time for me to call my friend Destin Whipple. You're going to have to subscribe to find out what's next.